Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Again, this week, we've been talking about the call of God on your life. I know that I've been challenged, encouraged. It's led to great times thinking and pondering what it means to be called and how do I respond when I feel God prompting my heart to do something. But you know what? Sometimes when we hear God's voice, we know it's God's voice. We know He's speaking to us. We know the Holy Spirit is stirring us, leading us, directing us, guiding us. And yet we have insecurities. We have fears. Have you ever thought, God, I think you called the wrong person, got the wrong number, right? I have. Have you ever felt like, I'm not the right person to do that? I'm not talented enough. I'm not equipped enough. I don't know enough about the Bible. I don't know how I'd answer their questions. And all those fears and those worries and those doubts start to flood in, right? I've experienced that too. And yet we have amazing examples through the Bible. I love the Bible because it instructs us, it teaches us, but it also shows us that we're normal because there's other men and women in the Bible who had many of the same feelings that we have, and we can relate to them. I want to share with you a story today about a mighty man of God named Moses. Moses did incredible things for God, incredible things. He led the people of Israel through the wilderness, but before he even got there, he had to go before Pharaoh, stand up to him and say, hey, let God's people go. He did incredible things for God, and yet he had fears. He had doubts and insecurities, and when God first called him, Moses actually tried to get out of it. He said, God, I think you got the wrong guy. We read about the account in Exodus chapter 3. It's this amazing story. I encourage you to read it. At the beginning of the chapter, it talks about Moses and the burning bush. When God actually speaks to him through a burning bush, a bush on fire. And we hear God's voice come out of that bush, and he calls Moses to be the deliverer of his people, Israel, who were being held by the Egyptians captive. And Moses is probably just taken aback by this, and yet he's a little bold in his insecurity. And we're going to pick it up in verse 11, where he actually kind of brings some concerns before God. It says in verse 11, but Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Who am I, God? Why am I the person? I'm not equipped. And God said, I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. So God with foreknowledge says, hey, not only are you going to do it, I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to be right by your side. But when you do it, not if it happens to work out, but when you do it, I already know what you're going to do in response. You're going to worship me. But Moses still was nervous. And it says in verse 13, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? Moses is thinking, okay, but what about my very own people? They're going to question why I'm the person. It says, God said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord is the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac. He goes on to talk about, I am who I am. You see, God didn't back down. I think sometimes we think God makes mistakes, but he doesn't. Sometimes maybe we feel like, okay, God, I think you called the wrong person. It's not supposed to be me. No, if God called you, he'll equip you. If God called you, he promises to go with you. If God called you, he knew exactly what he was doing. You are the perfect person for the task at hand. And so when those doubts flood in, when those worries come in, I'm encouraged by Moses that we can go to God with them. We don't have to hide them. We don't have to pretend they're not there. We don't have to act, stronger than we are. We can go to God in honesty and say, God, I'm worried about this. But just like Moses, we need to hear God's voice in that moment too and know that God is with us. God is with you. God has called you and he's with you walking each step. He's going to give you the strength, the courage, the faith, the determination, the words even to say. So go in faith. Talk honestly to God if you have fears. But then step out in faith just like Moses and watch God move mountains. Watch God part seas. Watch God deliver you and those around you. Be encouraged today. Step out in faith and trust God. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope to see you again tomorrow for another daily dose for spiritual growth.